Here's a video about varnishing a violin. This is one that it's actually a 5-string violin that I am just finishing up. I want to do a little video about the varnishing. Do some shorts of this on Instagram and stuff. If you're over there, you can see those little clips of this. Anyway, here we go. So first of all, this actually has a seal coat on it. This has shellac coated everywhere. You can kind of see the difference here on the neck between the sealed and unsealed. And that's just so the varnish doesn't soak in unevenly, especially on this flamed wood. This is European maple. This is actually an American top. But yeah, you definitely want to seal those so you don't have any weird, where it soaks in differently and does all that. All right, I'm going to try to hold it right there while I varnish it so you can see everything. There'll probably be spots where I go out of frame for this because I have a tripod holding the phone here. Anyway, here we go. So we're actually going to start with the ribs, and I use a real narrow brush. So this is a 1-inch brush, varnish brush. This is a natural hair brush. Anyway, and then this is the varnish that I use here. This is actually some that I have made myself. So this varnish is made with turpentine and linseed oil, and I don't recommend making it unless you have someone show you the first time in person. Very dangerous, very volatile, very obnoxious smelling. Definitely one of those where you don't want to do this if you like your neighbors. The whole neighborhood will smell like it. And you definitely have to do this outdoors when you make this stuff. But anyway, so this is some, like I said, I made just a little bit ago. This is a very light colored. The first coat, I always like to do a very, light colored, almost a clear. As dark as this looks, you'll see when I start brushing it on, it looks pretty clear. Once I thin it out here. Sorry, you're gonna find that I quit talking here because I have to focus. But I will try to talk about what I'm doing. So right now I'm just trying to spread that out. Now this varnish, you don't have very long to work with it. So you have to be pretty precise about what you're doing. You have about 30 seconds or so, maybe a minute to work with it. Not long before it starts to tack up. There we go, just like that. That's the kind of color we're looking for right there. Nice even brush strokes, nice and smooth. Starts to pop that flame a little bit. Gonna go into the C-bout now. And this is one of those where I'm gonna lose you here for a second because I'm gonna get in the way doing this because I have to come up around, pull off that corner, and the edges right here, you can see where I'm kind of lapping onto the edges a little bit. It doesn't really matter at this point because I'll actually go through and resand all these edges off after I'm done varnishing because they tend to get too dark. Because as I lap varnish from the sides to the back and vice versa, then I'm just going to end up making those sides too dark, and that's okay. Like I said, you pretty much nowadays I have learned that I just go through and sand those off when I'm done and make them more even. So there's your view, varnished, unvarnished. Now this is the hard part, is this little screw area. And I put that hook in so I can hang it from that hook. That is where the end button goes. I know that looks like a mighty big hook sticking out of there, but the end button is actually larger than that. So the diameter of that screw is smaller than the finished end button that goes in this. Okay, hopefully that stayed in frame. I don't know for sure because I wasn't watching. There's the sides varnished, the first coat. Now this will get about 5 coats, and that's where, you know, on a violin, all of the color is set by the varnish. It is not, you know, it's not the wood. It's very pale, very white, because you're using maple and spruce. And so the color is purely in the varnish, just pigments. Like this one, the color is set by the color of the varnish as I cooked it. And basically the different temperatures that you cook this varnish will give you different colors. This one, I will say that my first test coats were much lighter. So this has darkened up a little bit with age, which I'm not against. I'm really liking this color. As far as the first coat goes, this has kind of a nice, kind of a rich honey color, kind of a brownish honey, caramel honey, whatever you want to call that. But definitely, you know, the highlights, you know, the reflective, the chatoyancy of the wood is what it's called. Definitely has that, you know, honey color. The darker parts of the flame definitely are kind of that caramely color. You know, as you move it, you see that flame move and change. You know, so I'm liking what I'm seeing there. Okay. Now the other thing I do with the smaller brush is I'll do the heel here, and I'll work on the scroll. And then I'll actually switch brushes to a little bit wider one. Now I'm going to get almost all the varnish out to do the heel of the brush. I want it fairly, I won't say dry, but there's not a lot of varnish because I'm not doing a lot here. Oh, sorry. Wasn't doing it where you could see it. Not a lot to see, just lots of little brush strokes to meld in that varnish. This area is always kind of a problem. It's a weird place, weird shapes, try to varnish. Something like that. Now, this it doesn't really matter how far I go up into here, because this will be sanded off and refinished at the end anyway. All right, time for the scroll. And I don't know if I'll be able to do this with the scroll. So first off, we actually go right underneath. Sorry, here, I'll try to turn sideways. There we go. Go right underneath. Get the bottom of that volute. So the swirly part of the scroll here, it looks like the snail spiral, or whatever you want to call it, shell spiral, that is called the volute. And it is hard to varnish, for sure, because that is such a crazy shape to try to run a brush around. But you do the best you can and you move on. All right, time to do the other side of the volute. There again, I'm not using a whole lot of varnish. I dip it in the varnish and then actually wipe both sides of the brush on the edge of the jar, so that I'm not packing a huge amount of varnish. You can work with more varnish, like you could work with, you know, a heavier laden brush. I don't like to, just because then I have to deal with drips and really thick varnish in the corners. I might have to brush over it a couple times, and I risk it starting to tack before I get done brushing it out when it's thin like this. But I do tend to get cleaner results because of it. And so it's a trade-off. And that's definitely one of those things, like, you would just have to start varnishing and then just practice and see which way works better for you. Sorry, my other phone's getting updates. Just like that. Now we're going to get the bottom. Now this scroll has cheeks, like a cello. It's not very common on violins, but since this is a 5-string and we're widening the neck out and kind of needed that little bit beefier look down here at the peg end, then I did cheeks on it. And the cheeks are this square part that sticks out right here. Hopefully you can see that. Like I said, I'm sorry if I'm going in and out of frame, because this is definitely not the easiest to do, trying to hold it in one spot. Now we're actually going to get the front of the peg box. There's just kind of 2 little lines here. I'm just going to hurry and run up and down those real quick. Okay, and there's the scroll. All right, now for the big one. So now we're actually going to change the brushes. So I'm done with the 1-inch. Put it in my brush jar. Now my brush jar is just, I don't know if you can see it, it's off screen here. It's just a big pickle jar, gallon pickle jar that I have put turpentine in, and then never changed. It's had the same turpentine in it for 20-something years, and as I've varnished, it's just, varnish is diluted into it, and so now it's just kind of thinned out varnish. It's really not just turpentine anymore. It's just kind of thin varnish at this point. Now I'm just right here, I don't know if you can see it if I'm on screen or not, I'm just loading the brush. So I'm working the varnish down into the bristles, down into the center, making sure that I have even, varnish throughout that brush, and there's no old varnish hanging in there or thinned out turpentine sitting in that brush. So you just kind of sit here and you just work it back and forth and dip a little more varnish, come in, wipe it off. That just kind of slowly works its way in. And this is definitely something that you should take your time and do. If you see any, so I'm watching you can't see it and it's really hard to film, but I'm watching the varnish come down the side of the bottle, and it should come down in a nice even ripple. If you're seeing like a clear streak come through, that means you have a streak of turpentine still up in that brush somewhere, and you got to work it out. Now I'm getting nice, even cascade flows of varnish down the side of that bottle, so I think I am good to go. So now we were going to start with the back, and then we'll do the top, because the top I have to clean out the F-holes after I'm done varnishing. So I'm actually going to get a pretty heavy load on this, because I just wiped off one side. I'm going to put that varnish on. I'm going to start spreading it. I need a little bit more varnish, I can tell already. A little heavier load. You can work light, but you got to make sure you have enough. Now I will end up going side to side before I'm done with this. But for right now, I'm going to kind of work up and down, little short things, because I'm trying to get everything into all those little nooks and corners and crevices. Start seeing that come through. I just got little Thing on the side of the heel I'm going to grab right now. Get those corners, get that seam out. All right, now I'm going to clean out my brush because I don't want a lot of extra varnish in there. And now I'm going to start going just from side to side. Remember, I still, even though I have this whole back, I still only have about that minute left. I got little loops here. Yep, there we go. Got that. Clean out the brush. You'll see it's getting a little bit lighter colored as I go across here. And that's because I'm evening out the varnish. I'm taking off the extra. I don't want big, thick coats on this. You want pretty thin. One, it looks more even. As you can see as I'm going across, it's definitely evening out the overall color, getting rid of the streaks. And the other thing is it's faster to dry. Okay, I got one little thick spot on the edge I can see. I'm actually going to come across the other way so I can pick up that little bit in the C-bow. All right. Looks like I got to come across one more time. Now I'm running out of time. I can feel it. It's starting to get tacky. And if you work this too long, you'll be trying to go across there and your brush will just stick. So that's the first coat on the back. Now, if you get in the light, you'll actually see little things in the varnish, and that's little dust particles and air particles and little bits of stuff that was on the wood. And I did clean this off. I did brush it. I vacuumed it, to the air brush to it to try to get everything. But you're always going to have to deal with a little bit. But, yeah, there's the first coat on the back. Looks very nice. I like it. Okay, now we're going to do the top. Listen, after I varnish the top, then I have to clean out the F-holes. And I am doing this in front of a very sunny window. More varnish. And as you're going to see, I'm going to kind of avoid the F-holes a little bit. I'm going to come up around them, but I'm going to try to get kind of everywhere around them. We got to get right up against that neck right there, right up against this part, right up against that part. Okay, now we got to get around the F-holes. Okay, now you can kind of see I've got everything. I've got everything covered. And now I'm going to clean out the brush, get rid of the extra varnish. And then we're going to go vertical now. Now the reason for the different direction is in the top, I'm following the grain. In the back, I'm following the flame. And the reason I follow the flame in the back is to hide the brush strokes. Same as in the top. In the top, I'm following, since there's no cross flame, going across the top, then I have to go with the grain so that I'm any brush strokes that are left, because there will be some. This is not a spray. This is brushed on by hand. Then this will hide all those pesky brush marks. Now I'm almost out of time. I'm just following that edge a little bit because I'm picking up extra varnish. As long as I don't see any crazy brush marks in it, I'm going to leave it. Okay. That looks pretty good. I got one little spot right there. Come on, baby. There we go. Now I got to go down a little bit. Okay. Now I've got to quit working on this. It's starting to feel a little tacky. Okay, so there's the top. pretty happy with that. Okay, now I got to clean out the F-holes. So I'm just going to set my brush down. Now, this is nothing fancy. This is a bamboo skewer I have taken. You can kind of see how thin that edge out, just to kind of like almost looks like a little knife edge. I'm going to grab me a paper towel. I'm going to kind of wad it up. Hold it here with my thumb. Now, don't let this hit your, well, you can't see it. A little paper towel up here. You don't want to let that hit your varnish. You're going to take, actually go down in around that F-hole and just pick up that extra varnish that's down in there. And you want to push in to the top, like so. As I'm going in, I'm going this direction. Oh man, I wonder if I can hit it. Might be too late. I'll get it next time. Oh, I got it. One little corner was sitting there, bare wood. I got it. Now this first coat's not too bad, because that edge of that F-hole is open wood. There's, you know, yeah, I'm sure a little shellac got that in there, but not enough to really seal it very well. And so this first coat tends to just kind of soak into the edge of the F-hole right. Next coat though, nope. It will all be sitting right there on the surface. Nothing soaked in. And it doesn't really matter if it soaks in on the edges, because I actually go in and paint the edges of the F-hole dark so that you don't notice the blotchiness of the varnish. So there's the top. And I might have one little streak right there, but I can't touch it now. It's done. I got one little streak right there. You can kind of see it just a little bit. Through the next coat, that'll kind of disappear as it goes. And you'll see like some of the edges, like right here, the edge is kind of heavy. Right here, they're kind of bare. It doesn't matter, because I will be going over all of that later. Looks like we got one little thick spot right there. And you can just kind of, if you find a thick spot on the edge, you can just kind of wipe it off. So like this right here, I just tend to just take my glove and just touch it real lightly. It just sticks right to you. Now you don't have to worry about that like flowing down and doing something to the rest of your back. So you like right here's a thick spot. Right there's a little bit of a thick spot. Just wipe those off. Nothing crazy, nothing sophisticated. That's why I wear gloves. Just like that. You can smear a little of that down over the rest of that. Seal that up right there. That's all good. Help even that out a little bit. Okay, something like that, and we're done. So now I'm going to let this this particular varnish, I have to actually use, it has to sit in the sun, and that'll actually help it cure. But anyway, I just thought you'd like to see that. Gives it a nice shine. The shine will dull down as it dries a little bit. In front of a window, so you can see all my plants in the reflection. Anyway, but there it is. Y'all have a great day. Keep smiling.